I am not a fan of trolls. Hot take, I know. But I have been trolled a fair amount over uh, time, I guess. I don't really get trolled on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is very small, and so people who watch you when you're small, they tend to be pretty nice. But I have a written blog, and yeah, I have seen more trolls on my written blog than I have on my YouTube channel, and it is a very frustrating situation. One of the reasons I find trolls really frustrating is I think that the typical advice people give is actually kind of poor. The typical advice is ignore the troll, they want a reaction, whatever. But I don't really think that that works or is useful. In fact, it actually kind of reminds me of another situation where people told me to ignore someone and that advice was really dumb. So I actually have a stalker, a long-term stalker who has been kind of on and off for like 15 years or something. And for a while, part of his stalking included a cyber stalking component, which involved, excessive messages, frequently multiple messages a day, certainly many a week, sometimes many, many messages a day over a period of like 6 months. And people kept telling me to ignore him, that if I didn't give him attention, it would pass. If I did give him attention, it would encourage him and all that. But the thing is, ignoring him did nothing. He kept sending me all of those messages. And the reason is quite simply is there were no repercussions for him. He could just keep messaging me and keep making me miserable, and it didn't cost him anything. So that's why ignoring a troll really doesn't work. If you ignore a troll, well, they didn't really lose much, right? And they're just going to keep doing it until they find someone who does give them the reaction that they want. The one thing that did actually work with my cyberstalker was when I started forwarding his emails on to his family. As soon as I started doing that, he stopped real quick. And the reason why he stopped is it was humiliating for him. It was humiliating to have his messages passed on to his family members. And so at that point, his harassing me was causing him a problem. And when it started causing him a problem, then it stopped. And the flip side of it is me ignoring him just made me absolutely miserable. I became withdrawn. I stopped going out as much. I stopped seeing my friends. A similar thing on my blog, when I just ignored the trolls on my blog, I basically just stopped writing in it for a number of years because I didn't want to deal with that sort of harassment. And so, yeah, I think this advice of just ignore the trolls, I think it doesn't work. And I think that basically it will just leave people getting run down and bogged down and, probably withdrawing. As it happens, as I was kind of going through a period of getting trolled by a lot of people, I was also in therapy for some sexual trauma. And what I started to realize was that the way I was responding to these sort of internet trolls was traumatic in a way. I don't really think I have time to give a total overview of trauma in this video, but kind of one of the elements that happens with trauma is your body shuts down a bit, and this is exacerbated when you can't fight back. And so, or you can't take any response. So trauma is, in a sense, it's kind of the freeze response. We talk about fight and flight, but there's actually fight, flight, and freeze. Your system, for some reason, is saying, I can't fight and I can't flee. Right. And so now I better freeze. And so you kind of just shut down. And, not a therapist, but roughly speaking, one of the ways you want to deal with trauma is you kind of want to get out of that freeze response. And so taking action is generally really useful against fighting trauma. Feeling like you can't act or don't have an ability to act tends to intensify trauma. If you being trolled or you being harassed on the internet is starting to make you shut down, that's kind of a sign you're starting to respond to it in a traumatic way, and ignoring it is just going to make that situation even worse. Instead, what you have to do is you have to find a way of taking a response, really any response, because the taking a response helps you overcome the trauma and it helps you keep going on with your life. And at the end of the day, that's the end goal. The end goal, if you are getting trolled, is to not let them derail you. Don't let them get into an argument with you. Don't let them stop you from doing what you want to do. That is your goal with a troll. All right, so how do we deal with trolls without getting shut down and without getting traumatized? I think the first thing we have to think about is we have to register what is motivating a troll. Kind of poked around, and people have actually done some degree of studies on trolls on the internet. And the number one thing that sort of highlights if someone's going to become a troll is they have sadistic personality traits. And so that means they're the type of person who gets pleasure in causing other people pain. And that's it. Unfortunately, there aren't other things going on. They don't have low self-esteem. They're not likely to be like miserable in some way. They're just likely to be sadists. Someone is trolling you because they're getting pleasure out of causing you pain. And the payout for them is putting you in pain. If you indicate to them that you are in pain, that's going to make them feel good. Real simple. And so I think that's where some of this ignore them advice came in, because it does kind of deprive them of the payout that they're seeking. The problem is it may also be traumatic for you. Oh, sorry. I kind of hate thinking about this. It kind of emotionally shuts me down a bit even now. I think part of it is because I did have a really bad experience with getting cyber stalked, and if I'm not careful, it can kind of put me back into that like really triggered, really shut down space. But I think it's an important topic, so let's ground myself and power through it. But when you understand that you're dealing with sadism, that makes certain other decisions more simple. And so, for example, I'm a big fan of banning trolls. In fact, if it's your own like platform or space, I actually think that's one of the best ways of dealing with them, because A, you don't have to see them anymore. Your audience doesn't have to see them anymore. B, if it's a clever platform, they will ghost ban them, which means they'll still be able to see their own comments and think they're commenting, but no one else will be able to see it. But then, where this sort of gets controversial is people will start saying like, oh, are you shutting down free speech? Are you shutting down ideas that disagree with you? Kind of things of that nature. And for me, the differentiator is, do you think this person is acting sadistically or not? Are they just acting to cause pain, or are they having a real conversation with you? Because, yes, sometimes it is painful to see a different point of view from the one that you have. But I think when you're trying to evaluate if someone is a troll or not, the question you want to ask yourself is, does this statement seem designed to primarily cause another person pain? And if it does, yeah, just get rid of it. Like, who wants that? And you're not doing a bad thing for the world by shutting down sadistic people's platforms. If they want, a sadistic person can go create their own sadistic YouTube channel, their own sadistic blog. But the reason they like commenting on other people's blogs or Facebook pages or whatever is because no one wants to go watch a sadistic asshole rant about the world. Your blog or your Facebook or your whatever is not a place for sadistic people to exercise their sadism on people who are nice to you. And even if not from yourself, like, you want to protect your audience from that stuff, or your friends or whoever. They might argue it's about free speech, but it's not. It's about the desire to cause people pain. It's not an accident. They know what they're doing. They're not doing something unintentionally. But sometimes you don't have the ability to ban. And so, what do you do in that case? This is where ignoring it comes in. I don't love that answer. There's another one, like kill them with kindness, that I've heard, which I also don't love. I don't know. It seems ingenuine. If it works for you, like, fine, like, if you can do it. But I certainly can't. I am kind of grumpy, so it will not work for me. But I actually read an interesting Quora post by somebody who was an ex-troll, and he said there were two things that used to really disrupt him if he was trolling. And those two things were, one, if someone had a really genuine comment and they didn't really seem to get what was going on. So if the example he gave, I think, was like, wow, and you have to say it with like no trace of irony or meanness, but like, wow, you're really funny. You should be like a stand-up comedian when you grow up, or something like that, right? And if you can say something like that with sort of no malice, like, that's a potential answer. But the one that I prefer, that he recommended as well, was just to call it out. Be like, you're a troll. Or say something along the lines of, this person's a troll, no one else respond to them. And what's nice about that one is, if someone is a troll and somebody says that in the sort of audience, this person's a troll and no one else talks to them, you're calling out what they're doing. Like, the entire point of trolling is to get under your skin, and as soon as you just say this person is trolling, that kind of shuts that down. They can't kind of get in there so much. And then on top of that, by requesting no one else talks to them, you are denying them like further victims, because sometimes if you ignore the troll, another person won't ignore the troll, and then that will give them the satisfaction. That's probably my favorite way of responding if it's an option. I hope, against hope, this was an entirely hypothetical video for you, and that you're not dealing with any trolls right now. But if you are, just stay firm, just draw boundaries, just don't totally shut down and ignore them, but don't give them what they want either. Remember, many of us are dealing with trolls. Modern curse. All right. See you next time. Bye.